How the first man who gave a woman money changed history, the secret history tried to hide. Imagine a clay tablet, no larger than your hand, pulled from the dust of what was once the most powerful city on earth. On it, pressed in wedge-shaped marks nearly 5,000 years old, is a record of a transaction. A payment. A man, a woman, and an exchange of silver. Historians almost overlooked it. For generations, it sat in a museum drawer, catalogued but unstudied. When scholars finally translated it fully, they realized they were holding something extraordinary, not just a receipt, but a window into the moment when the relationship between men, women, and money first left a permanent mark on human civilization. But to understand why that tablet matters, we have to go back even further. Before silver. Before cities. Before writing itself, there was a time when no one on earth had ever held a coin. There were no banks, no markets in the way we think of them, no standardized currency of any kind. And yet, even in those earliest human communities, small bands of hunter-gatherers living across the plains of Africa, the forests of Europe, the river valleys of the ancient Near East, exchange existed. Objects moved between people. Gifts were given. Obligations were created. And women were central to all of it. Anthropologists studying the earliest human societies have found consistent evidence that gift-giving was never random. Objects carried meaning. A string of shells, a piece of polished obsidian, a bundle of grain, these were not just things. They were signals of status, alliance, affection, and debt. When a man gave something valuable to a woman, it meant something specific within that society. It always did. If you're enjoying this journey into hidden history, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more forgotten stories like this one. The question historians have wrestled with is not whether men gave things of value to women in prehistory, they clearly did. The question is when that act became formalized, recorded, and woven into the economic and legal fabric of civilization. And for that answer, we must travel to ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in what is now modern Iraq, the birthplace of writing, law, and the world's first cities. Around 3500 BCE, in the city of Uruk, a sprawling urban center of perhaps 50,000 souls, Sumerian administrators began pressing marks into wet clay to keep records. At first, these records were simple: counts of grain, numbers of livestock, tallies of labor. But within centuries, the record-keeping became remarkably sophisticated. And among the most frequently documented transactions were those involving women. Sumerian society was complex. Women could own property, conduct business, and enter into legal contracts. Temple priestesses, known as nada to women in later Babylonian society, managed estates, lent silver at interest, and held positions of economic power that would astonish those who assume ancient women were universally powerless. The clay tablets tell a different story. Among the earliest documented economic transactions involving women and silver, the standard medium of exchange in ancient Mesopotamia, are records of bride wealth payments. These were not purchases of women as property, as they are sometimes mischaracterized. They were formalized transfers of wealth from a groom's family to a bride's family, acknowledging the value of the woman, sealing an alliance between families, and establishing legal obligations on both sides. The bride herself often received a portion. In the earliest Sumerian records, this portion had a name. It was recognized by law. Leave a comment below. What surprises you most about what ancient women were able to own and control? But bride wealth was only one form of the exchange. Temple records from the city of Nippur, dating to approximately 2400 BCE, document wages paid to women for weaving, brewing, and serving in sacred institutions. These were not symbolic gestures. They were real payments of silver and grain, meticulously recorded, legally binding. A woman who wove cloth for the temple received her share. A woman who brewed the sacred beer, a genuinely holy act in Sumerian religion, was compensated by weight and measure. One particular archive, recovered from the ancient city of Drahem, contains the records of a woman named Shulgisimti, a royal wife who independently managed incoming livestock tribute, directing deliveries and authorizing disbursements in her own name. She did not ask permission. She signed off on transactions the way a modern administrator might stamp a document. Her authority was real and documented across dozens of tablets, and yet the most remarkable early records come not from queens or priestesses, but from ordinary women. Tablets from the Old Babylonian period, roughly 2000 to 1600 BCE, preserve letters written by women to men, and by men to women, discussing money, discussing debts, discussing payments owed and received. One letter, preserved in the British Museum, is from a woman scolding a male merchant for failing to deliver silver he promised her. She is not timid. She is furious. She knows exactly what she is owed. If you love uncovering the secrets of the ancient world, subscribe now and join us for more historical mysteries buried beneath the sands of time. Ancient Egypt adds another layer to this story. Egyptian women of nearly all social classes had the legal right to own property, inherit wealth, and conduct independent financial transactions going back to at least 3000 BCE. Papyrus documents from the New Kingdom period record women buying and selling land, receiving payments, and managing households with full legal authority. When a man gave a woman silver in ancient Egypt, the law recognized her ownership of it completely. It was hers. No husband could legally claim it without her consent. One extraordinary document, the adoption papyrus from the reign of Ramesses XI, records a woman named Nainfer who legally adopted her own husband's children by a servant woman, then transferred property to them, orchestrating a complex transaction that required her independent legal standing and control over significant assets. She was not a queen. She was a middle-class woman navigating the legal system with confidence and sophistication. So who was the first man to give a woman money? The honest answer is that history cannot name him. He lived before writing, before cities, before civilization as we define it. He may have pressed a piece of copper into a woman's hands in a Neolithic village. He may have offered shells, or grain, or livestock. We will never know his name or hers, but what the historical record does preserve, in clay, in papyrus, in stone inscriptions, is the unmistakable truth that the moment human beings began writing things down, they wrote about these exchanges. They were already ancient by then. Already woven into law. Already carrying meaning that entire civilizations were built upon. That small clay tablet pulled from the museum drawer was not the beginning of the story. It was simply the moment the story became impossible to ignore, a single fingerprint pressed into wet clay. 5,000 years ago, still legible, still waiting to be read.